Mindset Tales presents The Servant of Vaen, Futuristic Detectives versus a Demonic Relic. The rain over Ustea didn't fall in drops. It fell in thin, glowing threads, static-charged filaments that hummed softly as they struck the neon pavement. Detective Mara Voss stood beneath the flickering canopy of a transit rail and watched the threads dissolve into mist around her boots. Beside her, Jalen Rook adjusted the collar of his coat as the city's endless advertisements pulsed across his face in shifting colors.
You ever notice that the worse the crime, the prettier the weather looks?
Mara didn't smile. She handed him the hollow slate.
It looks like we've got another one.
Rook skimmed the report. Male victim. Apartment sealed from inside. No signs of struggle. Body arranged carefully at the dining table. A full bowl of snowflakes placed in front of him, as if it was some cryptic clue left by the killer. The irony did not escape either of the officers.
A real serial killer. Cute pun.
Not so cute. Look at what's written on the wall.
Rook zoomed in on the wall image. Etched into the polymer paneling, carved deep enough to expose wiring beneath, were three jagged words. They spelt, "Servant of Vaen." He exhaled slowly.
Damn, not that name again.
Third scene with the same phrase, same ritual placement, even the same serial.
And still no prints, no entry logs, no surveillance hits. Like they just appeared, did the job, and then vanished.
Detective Rook rubbed his temples, a puzzled expression on his face. Mara looked up at the skyline. Above them, kilometer-tall towers vanished into fog, their tops lost in the upper atmospheric shields.
Or like they were already inside.
The first, real lead came from the Archives District, a part of the city so old it still used physical buildings instead of data cloud structures. The archivist was nearly as ancient. Her speech was practiced, measured, professional.
Vaen. Now I haven't heard that name in decades.
She led them through rows of climate-sealed relics until they reached a transparent containment cylinder. Inside sat a black stone object, roughly fist-sized, shaped like a jagged spiral. It seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Rook felt a strange pressure in his ears just looking at it.
What the hell is it?
A fragment from a temple discovered 800 years ago, during the first colonization wave. The site was, to put it mildly, unusual.
Unusual? How so?
The archivist hesitated.
The explorers reported hearing voices, seeing figures that vanished when approached. Their logs mentioned behavioral changes, paranoia, aggression, compulsions.
She looked at the stone. Something like a shadow crossed her face.
They sealed the temple and removed only this relic. Shortly afterwards, the expedition members began killing each other.
Silence stretched.
And what about Vaen?
The archivist's eyes darkened.
They believed Vaen was not a god, but something imprisoned there.
Imprisoned by whom?
No one knows. The civilization that built the temple vanished long before humans arrived.
The murders escalated. Not just civilians anymore. Officials, engineers, even a city councilor. Each scene had the same signs. The same message. The same bowl of cereal. Then witnesses began reporting something else. People talking to empty air. People whose shadows moved when they stood still. People whose voices changed mid-sentence. It was Mara who finally noticed the pattern. She called her partner. When he entered her office, she was pacing the floor, deep in thought.
The victims. They all worked on planetary infrastructure.
Detective Rook frowned.
So then, what does that mean?
It means they all had clearance for off-world transport systems.
You think?
He went still, as if glued to the spot. Mara nodded slowly.
It's trying to leave.
They returned to the archives at a run, their boots echoing through the vast, hollow corridors. The building's climate systems hummed louder than usual, like something straining under pressure. A faint metallic tang hung in the air. Ozone, Mara realized, the smell of overloaded circuitry.
Now, that's not good.
The security doors to the relic chamber stood open. Not forced, not melted, simply open. Mara slowed as they approached. The temperature dropped with each step, cold seeping through her coat and settling into her bones. The overhead lights flickered erratically, throwing long, jerking shadows that seemed to stretch toward the chamber like reaching fingers. Inside, the containment cylinder glowed weakly. Hairline fractures webbed across its transparent shell, branching in jagged patterns that shimmered with faint black light. Each crack pulsed slowly, like veins carrying something alive beneath the surface.
That's impossible. That's reinforced polyquantum glass, rated to withstand orbital impact.
Mara didn't answer. She was staring at the figure standing motionless before the cylinder. The archivist was gone. In her place stood a young technician in a gray maintenance uniform. His hands hung limp at his sides. His posture was perfectly straight, too straight, like a puppet held upright by invisible wires. The figure wasn't blinking. Not once. Not even as the fractured containment field sparked inches from his face. Rook stepped forward carefully, one hand resting near his sidearm.
Sir, can you step away from the relic?
The technician didn't react. He just stared at the black spiral stone inside the cylinder, his expression utterly blank. Then slowly he turned to face them. Mara felt her stomach drop. His pupils were gone. Where they should have been was a smooth, endless blackness, like looking into deep space without stars. When he spoke, his lips moved slightly out of sync with the voice that came out. It sounded layered, one human, one vast and ancient, grinding like tectonic plates shifting beneath an ocean.
8 centuries, 8 centuries, I have been trapped in silence.
The words seemed to vibrate inside Mara's skull, rather than through the air. She drew her pulse weapon, aiming steadily, despite the tremor in her hands.
You are not leaving this planet.
The technician's mouth stretched into a slow, unnatural smile. Then he laughed. The sound wasn't loud, but it filled the entire chamber, echoing from surfaces that should not have carried sound.
I never intended to leave.
The cracks in the containment cylinder pulsed faster, light bending around them.
I intend to spread.
The temperature plummeted. Rook suddenly staggered, clutching his head. Mara felt it too, a pressure pushing into her thoughts, like fingers trying to pry open a locked door. Whispers flooded her mind. Promises. Commands. Images of cities burning, of people kneeling, of shadows flowing through streets like living smoke. She gritted her teeth and fired. The pulse bolt streaked across the chamber in a tight beam of blue-white energy and struck the containment cylinder dead center. Normally, that level of charge would have shattered alloy plating or dropped a riot mech in a single hit. Instead, the moment it touched the surface, the light slowed. Not visibly at first, more like the way a sound seems to dull when you plunge underwater. The beam's sharp crackling hiss softened into a low, swallowed hum. Then the energy began to sink. The hairline fractures in the cylinder glowed faintly as the pulse seeped into them, threading through the cracks like water flowing through dry earth. The light didn't scatter or reflect. It drained, vanishing inch by inch until nothing remained but darkness. Mara felt her stomach twist.
Rook, are you...
He was staring, transfixed.
That's not absorbing. It's feeding.
The cracks pulsed once, slow and deliberate, like a heartbeat. The technician's head tilted to one side, the motion unnervingly precise, like a marionette testing its strings.
You cannot harm a prison that is already broken.
For an instant, Mara had the impossible sensation that the world had lost its edges. The floor beneath her feet felt uncertain, as though it might not be there at all. Sound collapsed into a dull vacuum. Even her own breathing seemed distant, disconnected. Her body went weightless, not floating, unanchored. Gravity hadn't reversed. It had simply forgotten her. Her mind scrambled to make sense of it, but there was nothing to grasp. No up, no down, no direction, only a vast, silent absence pressing in from every side. Then came the sound. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even something she heard with her ears. It was a shriek that seemed to scrape across her bones, a high, tearing vibration like glass being twisted until it screamed. The sound carried a terrible wrongness, as though something ancient and immense was being forced through a space too small to contain it. For a fraction of a second, Mara thought she saw something in the darkness, a shape without form, an outline that refused to stay still long enough to be understood, something vast, layered, and watching, and then nothing. The world snapped back with brutal suddenness. The overhead lights blazed on at full intensity, stabbing into Mara's eyes. She gasped as gravity slammed into her again, dropping her hard onto the cold floor. Sound rushed back in a chaotic wave, the hum of systems rebooting, the distant wail of alarms, her own ragged breathing pounding in her ears. For several seconds she couldn't move. Her limbs felt numb, as though she'd fallen from a great height. Nearby, Rook groaned and rolled onto his side, coughing.
You felt that too?
Mara nodded as she forced herself upright, blinking through the afterimages burning across her vision. The technician lay a few meters away, crumpled like discarded cloth. His chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. His face was pale and drenched in sweat. His eyes were open, normal once more. Human. They darted wildly as he took in the room, confusion and terror flooding his expression.
I didn't. Something was in my head. I couldn't.
Mara barely heard him. Her gaze was locked on the containment cylinder, or what remained of it. The transparent walls had collapsed inward, not shattered outward. The fractures that had once spread across its surface had fused together into a single, jagged black scar burned into the floor, like a wound that had cauterized itself. At the center of that scar was emptiness. No fragments, no residue, no trace of the relic at all. Just a hollow absence that seemed to swallow the light around it. For a long moment, neither detective spoke. The room felt colder now, but not from failing systems. It felt abandoned. Rook broke the silence.
It didn't break out.
Mara stared at the empty space where the stone had been. A memory flickered in her mind, of that split second in the darkness, of something vast pressing against reality like a hand against thin glass. She shook her head slowly.
No, it let itself out.
They tracked it to the orbital transport hub. Dozens of people were gathered there, standing motionless in a circle, all facing the relic, which floated above the floor, suspended in a field of shimmering darkness. Rook felt pressure building behind his eyes. Mara grabbed his arm.
Rook, don't listen to it.
Because now they could hear it. A voice that wasn't sound but thought. A voice promising power, freedom, purpose, and rage. The archivist's final records gave them the answer. The temple, the place where Vaen had first been bound. The only place it could be destroyed. They loaded the relic into a containment transport and launched toward the uninhabited hemisphere of Ustea, where the ruins still lay buried beneath glassy desert. The temple was older than any human structure, black stone fused together without seams, carved with symbols that seemed to move when not directly observed. The air around it felt heavy, oppressive, alive. As they approached the central chamber, the relic pulsed violently, pulling against its containment field. Rook's hands shook.
It's trying to possess us.
Mara nodded.
Then we finish this damned thing. Fast.
At the heart of the temple stood a cracked altar, an empty socket shaped exactly like the relic in its center.
Are you ready?
Rook forced a smile.
Not even remotely.
They placed the relic in the center of the altar. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire temple screamed. Not metaphorically. The stone itself emitted a sound like 1,000 voices in agony. Darkness poured from the walls, forming a colossal shape, vast, horned, writhing. The true form of Vaen. Its voice filled the chamber.
You cannot destroy what feeds on you.
Mara stepped forward, activating the demolition charge.
Oh no! Just watch us.
She and Rook sprinted as the temple collapsed behind them, explosions ripping through the ancient structure. The darkness howled, then shattered into fragments of light that scattered across the sky like dying stars. And then, silence. Months later, Ustea was calm again. No more killings. No more whispers. No more shadows moving on their own. Mara and Rook stood beneath clear skies for the first time in years.
You think it's really gone?
I think it's where it was always meant to be, trapped and forgotten.
They stood in silence. Far away, buried beneath the shattered remnants of the temple, a single fragment of black stone lay hidden under what was once the ancient altar. And for just a moment, it pulsed, as if waiting for its chance to be reunited with the rest of its counterparts, scattered throughout the ruins. Waiting for the opportunity to be whole once again.
One day, I shall return.
If you enjoyed this tale, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. It would mean the world to us.